Durant is their best player. James Harden is their most valuable player. Kyrie is their clutchest player. And I believe James Harden makes it easier for all the other guys to do their job so well, so efficiently. He allows KD to not to have to worry about facilitating an offense, can just get to his spot, and he can get it to him in a hurry. He can do the same thing with Kyrie. And I think the most impressive thing for a guy like James Harden, a guy that had the usage rate.
Michael Jordan is still the better scorer, and Skip Bayless is wrong to act like Kevin Durant passing him on fewer shots ends the whole debate. That sounds smart when you say it fast, but the second you slow down and really look at it, the argument starts to fall apart. Yes, Durant passed Jordan in total points while taking fewer field goal attempts. That part is true, but that one number does not tell the full story, and basketball is never that simple. If you want to compare two all-time scores, you cannot just grab one stat, throw away the rest, and call it proof. You have to look at how they scored, what kind of shots they took, what kind of floor they played on, what kind of defenses they faced, and what kind of league they played in. Once you do that, the answer is not hard. Kevin Durant is one of the greatest scorers ever, but he is not a better scorer than Michael Jordan. The problem with Skip's take is that it sounds clean, easy, and simple. That is why people repeat it. They hear Durant passed Jordan on fewer shots, and they think that settles everything. But it only works if you ignore the full picture, and that full picture matters more than the headline. Field goal attempts are not equal across eras. A shot in Jordan's time is not the same as a shot in Durant's time. The floor was different. The pace of the game was different. The way teams used the three-point line was very different. The rules helped offense more in Durant's era than they did in Jordan's era. So if you want to be fair, you cannot compare the final numbers without comparing the world those numbers came from. Let's start with the raw part, because that is the part people keep bringing up. Michael Jordan finished his career with over 32,000 points. Kevin Durant has now moved past him. Durant also got there while taking fewer field goal attempts, and that is the line people keep using like it is the final word. But even right there, people leave out one big point. Durant has played more games than Jordan did. That matters. If one player takes fewer shots per game but plays more games, that changes the shape of the scoring total. So already the easy headline is not as strong as it sounds. But even bigger than that is the kind of shots each man took, because this is where the whole argument really starts to crack. Michael Jordan and Kevin Durant did not build their scoring totals in the same way. Jordan played most of his career in a league where the three-point shot was not the center of offense. Durant played in a league where the three-point shot became one of the most important weapons in basketball. That is a huge difference. Jordan made 581 threes in his whole career. Durant has made well over 2,000. That is not a small gap. That is not just a little style change. That is a completely different scoring path. Every time Durant hits a three, he gets more value from one made shot than Jordan got from the kind of shots he mostly lived on. So when people say Durant got there on fewer shots, they leave out the fact that Durant was getting more points.
Jordan was attacking in a different way, on a different floor, in a different game. So the idea that fewer field goal attempts automatically makes Durant the better scorer is way too lazy. It skips the hardest part of the conversation. Think of it this way. If the NBA added a 4-point line tomorrow and a new generation of stars started taking and making those shots all the time, those players would rise in scoring totals faster too. Would that automatically make them better scorers than Durant or Jordan? Of course not. It would just mean they were scoring in a system where certain shots were worth more and used more often. That is why context matters. The value of the shot matters. The way the league is built matters. The style of the game matters. The final total is not enough by itself. If you ignore how the total was built, then you are not really doing basketball talk. You are just repeating numbers without meaning. Now let's talk about the era, because this is where the whole thing becomes even more clear. Jordan played in a tighter game. Durant played in a wider game. That changes everything for a scorer. In Jordan's era, teams were not launching threes like they do now. The floor was more packed, help defenders could be closer, driving lanes were tighter, mid-range space was harder to find. Everything felt more crowded. Jordan was attacking into more bodies, more traffic, and less room. Durant has played in a much more open game. Shooters spread the floor. Defenders have to respect the three-point line more than ever. Help has farther to travel. Lanes open up. Pull-up space gets cleaner. A player with Durant's size and touch is dangerous in any era, but in the modern game, the conditions are almost perfect for someone like him. That is not hate. That is just how basketball works. A near 7-footer with guard skills, soft touch, deep range, and clean footwork is always going to be hard to stop. But when you place that player in a spread-out league with more room to work, you are giving him even better scoring conditions. Jordan did not play in that kind of space. Jordan had to build his scoring game in a league that was more packed, more physical inside, and less friendly to offense overall. And yet, he still became the greatest scorer ever. That is why the simple fewer shots line is not enough. It acts like both men were taking the same test under the same rules, and they were not. The modern NBA is built to help offense in ways older eras simply were not. Teams now shoot a massive number of threes. That changes the shape of the defense. Defenders cannot sit in the paint the same way. They cannot shrink the floor the same way. They have to cover more ground. That means stars today see more space than stars used to see. There is also the defensive 3-second rule, which matters a lot even if people do not bring it up often. A defender cannot just stay planted in the lane waiting forever. That changes how much help is available near the basket. It changes how players attack. It changes what scorers see when they turn the corner. Again, this is not saying today's players have it easy. It is saying the rules and the floor both make life easier for offense than they once did. That matters when you compare efficiency. If one player scores in a time when offense is helped more by spacing, rules, and shot value, then his efficiency numbers should be looked at through that lens. You cannot just say Durant is more efficient and
More efficient in what setting? Under what rules? With what shot diet? On what kind of floor? Against what kind of defensive shape? These questions matter, and once you ask them, the answer becomes clear. Durant is more efficient in a more offense-friendly era. That is not the same thing as proving he is the better scorer. It only proves he scored in a system that allowed for higher efficiency. Michael Jordan did not just score a lot, he ruled scoring. There is a big difference between those two things. Jordan won 10 scoring titles. 10! That is not just greatness, that is total control over an era. He also still owns the highest career points per game average in NBA history. That matters so much in this talk because it shows how far above the field he was in his own time. Durant is an all-time great scorer, no question, but Durant was never more of a scoring king in his own era than Jordan was in his. Jordan set the standard. He was the measuring stick. He was the man every defense feared most every single night, and the numbers back that up. People talk about efficiency because it sounds modern and smart, and it does matter, but efficiency alone does not decide who the better scorer is. Scoring is not just about clean math. It is also about force, pressure, volume, consistency, control, and how much you separated yourself from everyone else around you. Jordan did that better than anyone. He was not just good at getting points, he bent the whole game around his scoring. Teams knew it was coming and still could not stop it. He could score in the post, in the mid-range, at the rim, in transition, off cuts, off steals, off pull-ups, off fadeaways, through contact, in tight games, in playoff games, in finals games, anywhere and anytime. He was the most feared scoring force the sport has seen. Durant is smoother in some ways. He may look easier. He may look more effortless. He may shoot over people in a way that feels unfair. That is why some people get carried away and say he is the best scorer ever. But looking smooth is not the same as being greater. Jordan's scoring came with pressure that was hard to match. He had to carry offense in a harder environment and still ended up as the top dog. He did not need a huge three-point diet to become the standard. He did not need today's spacing to own the scoreboard. He did it with skill, will, and non-stop pressure on the defense. That is why people still speak about his scoring with a different kind of respect. Another thing people skip over is that Jordan's game was built in a more physical time. That does not mean every game in the 90s was a street fight, but it does mean life inside the arc was tougher. The floor was tighter. Contact near the basket was heavier, and space had to be earned. Jordan attacked that world over and over again. He did not have a spread floor waiting for him on every trip. He had to create in smaller spaces, and he still lived on elite numbers. Durant has dealt with tough defenders too, no doubt, but the kind of floor he has played on gives a scorer more breathing room, and that breathing room matters. It helps pull-up shooters, it helps slashers, it helps every star who can take advantage of even a little space. This is why the fewer shots idea is a shortcut. It takes the final result and ignores the road that led there. It tells you where the players ended up, but not how hard the path was. And in sports, the path matters. If one player climbs a steeper hill and still reaches almost the same place, that tells you something. Jordan built his scoring legend in a game that was harder for scorers. Durant built his in a game that gives more help to scorers. So if Durant ends up looking a little cleaner by certain numbers, that should not shock anyone. The league itself pushes things in that direction.
You cannot just look at the rank and stop there. If that were true, then every player who moved up past a legend would automatically become greater than that legend in that area. That is not how it works. The number on the list is one part of the story. It is not the whole story. The truth is simple. Kevin Durant is one of the most gifted scorers the game has ever seen. He deserves respect for that. He deserves praise for that. He is a nightmare matchup. He can score from anywhere, over anyone, in almost any style. He has range, touch, size, and calm. There are very few players in NBA history who can score as easy as Durant can when he gets going. None of that needs to be denied. But praising Durant does not mean you have to lower Jordan. That is where this debate gets silly. People want to boost one great player by acting like another great player has now been passed, but the facts do not support that. Jordan's scoring greatness is not just about the total points. It is about how he ruled the game while getting those points. It is about 10 scoring titles. It is about the highest career average. It is about doing it without the three-point boost that helps modern scorers. It is about doing it on a more packed floor. It is about doing it in a game that gave less room and fewer easy answers. It is about doing it with every defense locked in on him as the main threat. It is about still getting it done anyway. That is what makes Jordan the best scorer ever. Not one stat, not one list, not one shortcut. The full picture. And that full picture is where Skip's argument breaks. He says Durant passed Jordan on fewer shots, so Durant has shown he is a more efficient, better scorer. But even if you want to give Durant the efficiency edge in a basic stat sense, that still does not make him the better scorer. Better and more efficient are not always the same thing. If one player scores a little cleaner in easier scoring conditions, while another player scores a little less clean in harder scoring conditions but dominates his era more, then who is really the better scorer? That is the real question. And for most people who understand the game deeply, the answer is still Jordan. This is not about disrespecting Durant. It is about being honest about Jordan. That is where many media takes go wrong. They use today's numbers to tear down older players without explaining the changes in the game. They act like the league has always been the same. It has not. The three-point shot changed the math of offense. Spacing changed the shape of the floor. Rules changed what defenses could do. Pace and style changed what scorers could hunt. All of that matters. And once you bring all of that back into the room, the hot take cools down very fast. If Durant had spent his whole career in Jordan's world, with Jordan's floor spacing, Jordan's shot mix, Jordan's era, Jordan's defensive shape, and Jordan's rules, then maybe this debate would have a stronger case. But that is not what happened. Durant played in the spacing era. Jordan played in the congestion era. Durant played in the three-point boom. Jordan played before that boom changed everything. Durant got to use a scoring map that gave more reward to long-range volume. Jordan built his name in a game where that tool was not the center of offense. That does not make Durant lesser. It just means the comparison is not as simple as people want it to be. A lot of fans fall for simple arguments because simple arguments are easy to remember. Fewer shots is easy. More efficient is easy. Past him on the list is easy. But the truth is heavier than that. The truth asks more of you. It asks you to remember that basketball changes over time.
It asks you to see numbers inside the world they came from. It asks you to stop treating every stat like it exists in a vacuum. And if you are willing to do that, then this debate is not very close. Durant has a strong case as one of the most pure scorers ever. Jordan still has the stronger case as the greatest scorer ever. There is also something else that should not be lost here. Jordan's scoring had a kind of pressure to it that few players have ever matched. He was not just scoring for style points. He was scoring while carrying huge stakes, huge pressure, and huge attention. And he answered that pressure again and again.
Big game after big game, big moment after big moment. Durant has had great scoring moments too, but Jordan built an entire image around the fact that when the game needed a bucket, everyone in the building knew where it was going and still could not stop it. That matters when we talk about the best scorer. Fear matters. Control matters. The way the game bends around one man matters. And no, this is not nostalgia. This is not just older fans holding on to the past. This is basketball logic. If you compare two players, you have to compare the worlds they played in. You have to compare the tools they had. You have to compare the kind of space they saw, the kind of shots they took, and the kind of league they ruled. Jordan checks more boxes in that kind of fair comparison. Durant is taller. Durant may be smoother from deep. Durant may be more made for the modern game than almost anyone. But Jordan's scoring force, his era control, and the conditions he did it in still put him ahead. That is why this kind of take from Skip Bayless feels more like a shortcut than real analysis. It sounds bold, it sounds fresh, it starts debate. But once you really test it, it does not hold up. It skips over the hard parts because the hard parts do not help the headline. And that is what happens too often in sports talk now. People chase the one-line argument instead of the real answer. The real answer takes more time, more honesty, and more context. But the real answer is also stronger. Durant on fewer shots is true. Durant being the better scorer because of that is not. Jordan did not need today's game to become the gold standard. That is what people keep missing. He did not need teams firing 35 threes a night. He did not need the floor spread wide with shooters in every corner. He did not need a system built around offense-first math. He did not need it, and he still became the model for scoring greatness. That should count for more, not less. If anything, it should make people respect his numbers even more, because if he could do that in a harder scoring world, then what would he look like in today's open game? That is the question many people do not want to ask, because the answer would only strengthen his case. Imagine Jordan with today's spacing. Imagine Jordan with cleaner lanes, more room in the mid-range, more freedom for stars, and more value on the outside shot. Imagine him adding the kind of three-point volume stars use today. It is not hard to see how scary that would be. And that is another reason the raw comparison does not land the way some people think it does. If you are going to move numbers across eras, then at least be fair about how those eras shape the numbers. Do not just take the part that helps your take and ignore the rest. At the end of the day, this debate should not turn into hate on Kevin Durant. He has done enough to earn his place among the greatest scorers ever. That is not the issue. The issue is the jump from all-time great scorer to better scorer than Michael Jordan, based on one shallow line. That jump is too big, too fast, and too weak. Jordan's scoring crown is built on too much history, too much proof, and too much era dominance to be knocked down by one number with no context around it. So when Skip says Kevin Durant has shown he's a more efficient, better scorer than Michael Jordan because he passed him on fewer shots, the right response is simple. Durant may look more efficient on paper in a friendlier scoring era, but that does not make him the better scorer. Jordan scored in a harder setting, with a different shot map, on a tighter floor, with less help from the era, and still